here we are. And
Here
we
we
are
are.
live on Humor, Grace, and Grief, the Friday Greet Chat. I'm Jill, and my rainbow friend over there is Deb.
You know, I gotta tell you, it in this room it's nice and toasty because we have a gas fireplace,
Mhm.
and anywho, it is. And then you walk out to the rest of the house, and it's like, what happened? So
Right?
and a friend of mine just wrote me and said, I'm trying to sort of push against the introversion I developed during COVID. And
Mhm.
I think to myself, I am embracing my inner introvert by not going out of the house for a few days.
I
Oh,
really have found my inner introvert, and yeah, Kaiten found me. She refuses to sit
oh,
on the floor today. For those who are listening, not watching, I have one of our five oodles on my lap, just
oh,
sitting like a little prairie dog.
oh, oh, so sweet. How's the week been for you?
It has been non-stop. That's how this week has been. And it's going to continue that way. I am going until 7 o'clock tonight, and I'm ending it with, okay, get this, a stress management self-care for a group of stressed out women who are political activists in our community, and they need to bring it down a few hundred points for themselves and clear their heads. But I'm racing all the way to the end of Friday.
Oh my gosh.
How
Yeah,
about
yeah.
you?
You know, um, Slow and steady is what I'm doing. Since my daughter had surgery last week,
Right.
I froze a bunch of meals for her. So every few 4 days, I give her some, and she has some wonderful cooks in her life. And I'm like, oh, well, I ate that.
I want that.
I want that. So
Bring me
I
meals.
do that, and I think after today she'll be able to do a shower by herself. She got out of the house with help from someone else, and she has some wonderful artistic friends in her life. So,
Oh, good.
it's all good. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm having to do the okay, new credit card, new stuff, got to switch all those things over before the first of the year.
And today's the last day to do, or tomorrow's the last day to make Medicare decisions for those who are on Medicare.
Yep,
They
she
chose Pearl Harbor Day to do that.
interesting. Interesting. Um Another thing is, and I don't know if I talked about her last week, but my girlfriend Beth Escher died.
Yeah.
And you know, a couple things. One, whoever dies in your life, I I hope that you get dreams or feelings, or if you identify with cardinals and feathers and things like that, or a light flicker. And yes, exactly,
Cardinals.
cardinals. And I'll tell you, I have been blessed this week. I That gave me comfort
Hmm.
is hearing Beth in my head and in my
Yeah.
heart last night. And last night, I even dreamt about her. And the interesting things about dreaming about loved ones is sometimes they're on. Uh, you can't quite touch them, or like when I dream about my mom, she's like in a restaurant but further away. I've seen my mom and my grandparents, and if anybody's wondering, they're real.
They
They're
are.
real to you. And
Hmm.
when you see that and maybe you can't quite get to them, that's because that's a few of the boundaries. And sometimes the boundaries exist. Sometimes they don't. And
And you can feel them right next to you and feel their breath or smell the scent
yes.
that you associate with them. All of that.
Or I want to tell people you're not crazy if you hear things. You don't
Right.
need to be medicated.
Mm-mm. If they're telling you to harm yourself, then you need to tell someone. But if you
Yeah,
just hear them talking to you or you hear reminders of them, that's a comfort moment.
it
That's
is
a glimmer,
a
right? The
glimmer.
clouds open and a little glimmer comes through and it says, they're still here with you. And there's absolutely nothing crazy, insane, or wrong with that.
Yes.
It's it can be as simple as a coin in the street. For some people, it's license plates.
Oh, oh my gosh. I don't know if you have a story, but right after this young woman died, her name was Dawn. And I remember right after she died, and I was talking about her, I get in my car and the license plate in front of me said Dawn 68 or something like that. And I went,
Yeah,
and you know, that's so important to
to honor
allow yourself. That's the
and to
thing.
breathe into it and to honor it and to let it come in, right?
How else have you felt loved ones?
I have, which is weird after COVID, I have a lot of olfactory kind of memory jogs that occur.
Uh-huh.
I walked into a home. I do some walk and talk sessions now. And so I
Yeah.
went to pick someone up to go for walk and talk and stepped into their home for a moment. And it's an older home, so it's like that older home, but it brought back my Aunt Pat, who has been gone since I was 20. I've lived more than half my life without her now, and she was my most important extended family member.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like being enveloped, right, in all the things, and all the memories came back. And she's attached to a lot of holiday memories as well. So that um, when we have the birds in our backyard, that's my mom all the time because my mom loved the birds, and we have the exact same birds because we live next door, so we kept them here. Um, which also makes me a crazy person when the hawk comes by and tries to steal my birds. I don't
Ooh,
do there is no cycle of
ooh.
life in our backyard. If you
No,
are a hawk, you are leaving and you are not stealing my birds. You can go cycle of life somewhere else, right?
exactly.
Right. And the oodles who bring back the other oodles who are missing. I ran out to get a haircut this morning and I ended up telling the story of Doug and the day he died. And it's a story that I get to share because he was special and because people should know it's okay to be there when a pet dies
Absolutely.
and to adopt an older dog or cat.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know, I think one of my most for over like almost 2 years, and I think I told this story, so stop me if I have. It has to do with my friend Roger who died, and when he died of a brain aneurysm, and I officiated the ceremony between him and Donnie,
Hmm.
and we were all camp buddies, and I didn't even know that Roger had had an aneurysm, but the night before he did have an aneurysm, or maybe he had it that night. I was walking next door and I go, oh my God, who is smoking? Who is smoking cigarettes? It's horrible. Why are they smoking here? And Daryl, he never smells anything anyway. Well, the next day, I smelled it again, only it was in our living room. I'm like, I know the windows are open, but this is horrible. Then I found out he died. And then for the next year, I mean, I could be sleeping in bed with my CPAP machine.
Hmm.
And in the middle of the night, I'll wake up because I'm smelling cigarette smoke. And
Hmm.
whenever I smelled cigarette smoke, I called Donnie, his partner, his husband, and he goes, "Oh my God, you're never gonna believe this, or you're never gonna believe," like something had happened. And I know it gave comfort to Donnie. And at some point he goes, "When am I gonna smell the smoke?" And I'm not in charge of the universe. I back off like this, right? And those olfactory memories just are so powerful.
They absolutely are, and they're absolutely real. And that's why when we make the dishes that bring our loved ones back, the olfactory, not even the taste or the texture, it's the initially when it's cooking, it
Yes.
fills the home. I had someone I see who had intentionally made all the old family favorites for during the week of Thanksgiving, and it was that talked about that. Just it's like putting a quilt of smells
Yes.
around you, and it's just like that
Yes.
cozy quilt of smell. And for us, that's pot roast for my mom,
Mm-hmm.
and rainbow trout on a grill for my dad,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's all those things. And for me, it's also still lake water, because that was Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we lived, Linda and I, and that's where my dad grew up and my grandparents were. And although Dr. Beach Gem says you should not ever get into a Florida lake, I survived. I grew up swimming in the Florida lake, and it was okay.
Mm-mm.
Obviously, we didn't stick our heads under for prolonged periods, but you got in because it was cooler than it was in the outside
Mm-hmm.
by like 2 degrees,
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. No
because
kidding.
Florida, right?
Yeah. I'm just like worried about alligators. So I don't go where they're, you know, yeah, that's not happening.
Yeah.
For me, it's the smell of warm bagels. It's the smell of walking into a delicatessen. I am always reminded from all the Sundays, my dad would wake me up like at 6 a.m.
Hmm.
Get up. No. Get up. No. Get up. We're going to the deli. Okay, I'm going. So, it's the brine from pickles. It's the smell of the lox and the whitefish and the smoked fish. Oh my gosh, I'm drooling. I am drooling as I'm remembering this.
We have a staff person who drives to the deep south every Christmas, and I said, "You're driving straight through?" Yeah, yeah, it's only about 25 hours. I said, I can remember every moment on the 10 because we drove at least one direction back or forth from Florida, and we took the 10 from start to finish
Yes,
to get home.
yes.
And instantly I was back in the camper, right? And I was 9 years old or whatever. It's those things that bring those back. That's why people like those social media groups that are, I grew up in whatever town,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because people post the pictures of what the town used to look like. Right? Do you remember this store that's no longer there or has become this
Yeah.
chain instead? Or, we go to breakfast many Sundays with our old neighbor, and we talk about what used to exist on that block. And it just brings back the places, the people, the smells, the excitement, all of the things. Right? And that
Mhm.
is why, as well as the holidays, it can be such an overpowering thing on the plus and on the minus. Right? It can be
Right,
all the
right.
good memories, but it can also
And
be all the missing.
and your eyes will start squirting. That's what I
Oh,
feel.
yeah. Mhm.
My eyes start squirting, and
Mhm.
yep, yep. And not and I'm going to speak for both Jill and I. Yes, sometimes memories can come back that are all cozy, warm, fuzzy, and your eyes squirt. And sometimes that anxiety comes back. Like, not all memories are the warm and fuzzy kind. Some are
No.
very harsh. And if you smell, you know, certain, if you've ever been sexually assaulted and you remember the smell of that person, just, I mean, it could be,
It's trauma.
it's trauma. It dysregulating when you go into Macy's and you walk by the counter that has all the smells, and you just might. Here's a memory that for me that was anxiety producing, and I'll write, and yet when I was a home nurse and I had to do some stuff at the dormitory that I was in at the University of Illinois, and I walked in and I smelled that smell, and it didn't matter that I hadn't been there for 20 years. It brought up, even just standing on the stairwell, it just brought up a whole bunch of stuff from when I lived in that dorm, and it was
Absolutely.
just even going back there.
Exactly. But for you, it's also the smell of cigarettes when your friend dies, and
Yes.
that reminds you. And that's why also at the holidays, it's if you had a living fir tree in your home and you have one now, it can bring back some of those good memories.
Mm-hmm.
And it can, conversely, if you were the family that had fights at Christmas, or if there's a certain smell of alcohol that comes up
Oh,
for those who grew up in alcoholic families,
you knew.
it's those things. And so this is the time of year to be especially sensitive about yourself and especially kind to yourself, and to avoid the things that could cause those memories to come forward when you're not prepared for them, and to have some skills in your belt pocket so you can bring them up if that smell comes in, or that lighting comes in, or that sound comes in, or that image comes
Absolutely.
in, so that you can do some square breathing, unclench your hands, stretch them out intentionally, whatever you need to do to bring yourself back down again.
Exactly. You've probably seen, and I've been getting this from Brent Burkhoff and Andrew Vitale, two colleagues of Jill's and mine. And I think it's from Grief. It's called Grief Notes or Grief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I've been posting them on our page. I'm just going to quickly bring them up from that. But there is, especially Jill and I and others, we've been putting out more things about grief because this is the season,
That
and
you need it.
it's so hard to these are called help texts, and there's like little notes. I really like this, things I wish I knew before becoming a grieving person.
Those are fabulous.
It is. I'm just sort of going through some of them. And people don't do this enough because there's other people in their life. One, you're feeling down anyway. And then you have those people in your life that go, you need to get over this. And I'm like, oh, you have to make a lot of time for grief. Grief is not a marathon. Grief feels like a marathon only because it keeps going and going. But when you're running a half marathon or something, you know there's going to be an end and you practice. Well, who here practices for grief? Nobody.
Who here even wants, other than us, wants to think about grief? It's what we
Exactly.
do all day long. We talk about it naturally wherever we go. But while grief does improve and you're not staying in true bereavement, the sense of loss comes and goes throughout your life for each and every person and creature and place and thing.
And because sometimes, when you're moving out of a house into another house, it doesn't feel like home for maybe a year.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why when I move, I make sure that pictures go on the wall and the silverware in the drawer. That tells me I'm home.
That tells me, yeah. I know my husband was asking, why is so-and-so putting artwork up when they need to be unpacking boxes? I go, I would do the same. It feels more like home if I have the artwork up.
It is nesting.
It is. Here's another good one. Believe you can do hard things even when you feel like you can't. So if there's something you want to do, but you don't think you can do, that's different from saying, I don't want to go. Mm-hmm. I don't want to face a bunch of things. Well, guess what? You don't have to.
I'm choosing to not participate today.
That's right.
One of the things I included in my discussion for tonight is you can always choose a blanket fort. Blanket forts are very effective, and we teach them to children for that very reason.
Here's a blanket fort, in case anybody's forgotten.
Mm-hmm. Put that blanket. Yeah, I don't actually, that feels like suffocation to me, but.
Oh, no, I love it.
Deb puts the blanket over her head. I like to do put the blanket over the couch and then sit on the floor so it makes like a little tent, put a couple chairs out there, and you're enveloped in the warm, fuzzy blanket, and you can bring in pillows or the pets or the stuffed animal. It's not just for kids, folks.
And I want to talk about stuffed animals for a second. After my mom died, Stephanie says, thank you for giving me permission for blanket forts. It's definitely that kind of day. Yes, Stephanie.
And please do. Yes.
At 40, almost 41, when my mom died, I will just say, and that was the last of my parents, Daryl's family wasn't real touchy-feely, and my family was more touchy-feely. I decided I would buy myself a stuffed animal, and it was a bear, and it was white, and I named him Doggy, Dog Bear, because that's God spelled backwards. And I would go to sleep hugging a bear at age 41. And when I was truly, truly done with that bear, I gave it to someone else whose father had died.
I love that.
And sometimes you just need something to hold. If you're not holding yourself in a blanket fort, here's another easy way to hold yourself in a blanket fort. Because like Jill, sometimes you just need to see a little or breathe a little. So I would lay on the couch and just look out one eye and have my nose out. I would have that.
Periscope style.
Yes, Periscope. And you just hold yourself.
So let me piggyback onto that. When Linda was alive and I had old-fashioned gallbladder surgery, which involved 22 staples. And we lived on a Grove Road. So to get home from surgery involved a third of a mile of rutted sand road. If you don't know Grove Roads, go to Florida and try one. she bought a stuffed manatee, which are they're in Florida, you can get them everywhere. They're about as long as you are wide.
Yes.
It held up well against the stitches, but it
Yes.
was also soft and comforting.
Yes.
And that manatee was named Claire, and she went through multiple surgeries. I was in grad school, so I had to get back and forth to Tampa, which was 90 minutes each way with those staples, because thou shalt not miss a day of grad school. But then Claire went to car accidents, and Claire went to neck surgeries, and Claire went to hip replacements, and Claire went everywhere. And Claire eventually got washed so much she died. And now Claire, too, is sitting across from me, waiting to go into service again, because Claire is how you connect to the person. You have the feeling of connection. And literally, it's comforting.
It is. Lots of times, someone over here will buy something and someone over here. So I'll have two of something, right? And IKEA was doing these.
Oh, those freak me out. But yes, I do know people who like them.
They're good. Pillow splints or hug splints.
They are
so important. Yes. Hello.
They give those out to people at our local hospital when they have open heart surgery, so that they can get home comfortably.
Yeah. I don't know why they don't give out uterus pillows when you have a hysterectomy, because you
can buy them on Amazon, as a matter of fact. I might have had one of those, plus a t-shirt that said, "Back off, I just had a hysterectomy."
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
I might have done that after that surgery.
Yes.
My GYN was like, "I've never seen a hysterectomy shirt." I'm like,
yeah.
I think when there's loss, one should honor it. And that was a loss. And I don't have hormones anymore, so you better be careful. Loss of hormones are a real thing.
And speaking of body part loss, a few people had written me, and I said, this is normal, that if you have your gallbladder out or any body part out, actually, usually about 4 to 6 weeks later, you feel this sense of loss. Now, people might talk about it other ways, but it's like you have this release of eye squirting or whatever. And
for lots of women with a hysterectomy, that represents a lot of other losses.
Exactly.
For me, it was a profound sense of relief, but for lots of people, it wasn't. That's why I took humor into surgery, because it was a profound sense of relief. But for lots of people, it's a loss that represents loss of childbearing and youth and all those things.
People didn't want to. I mean, it was such a big deal to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a big deal to me that, in fact, besides doing the humorous thing, right? Because I had a coming out party given to me by my gay friends. They wanted to have a coming out party. The irony was not lost. And they made me a giant cake, all red inside. The cake was in the shape of like a gingerbread, but they made it look like me. And they stuck a speculum in the crotch area.
Oh my God.
And I could not stop laughing. But then I made a uterine cheese ball complete with fallopian tubes and eggs. And I wrote the more polite thing, which was bon appetit.
We are giving these folks all kinds of ideas for things they can do when someone's about to have a major surgery.
And then I wrote a personal letter to my uterus. And I hope everybody can find someone like this. At the time, the minister, I gave it to her, and I said, and I told everybody, I wanted this letter read to my uterus when they take it away. Now, what I didn't know, and everybody was crying, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then I gave a letter of a copy of that to the doctors and the nurses. They wanted to share that. So the other part was, and I did not know this at the time, that uh, that in Judaism you bury all body
Yes, you
parts,
do.
and so without even knowing part of my own spiritual and religious history, I was doing that in my way. I
Because you believe in rituals.
I
Mhm.
exactly, and there were other things that I did too. So if you find yourself getting a gallbladder out, and then write a letter to your gallbladder. Thank your gallbladder for being the best it could be, right? If you have heart surgery, though, and they don't even have to take anything out, the heart is even more sensitive. So 4 to 6 weeks afterwards, I don't care if it's the strongest of men, they're going to go down the tubes mentally.
And heart surgery actually causes chemical changes that cause depression and anxiety.
Yes.
You really have to be on top of that and aware of it, if especially if you are have a family history of anxiety or depression.
If
Yeah,
you have if you get a stent, if you get a pacemaker, you don't even have to
any of
do
it.
a lot. Anything, an ablation, anything dealing with the
The
heart,
heart.
you make sure you prepare.
And now let me add the humor part to it. When I
Yes.
had my hysterectomy, Stacy managed to reach the doctors in the OR. I don't know how she got Kaiser to put the call through to OR itself. And they gave the phone to the anesthesiologist while they were getting me on the table. And he said, "What did you say?" And then he repeated it out loud. "Jill, your wife said to look at the light, not go to the light. And I have to get you out of here alive." And my surgeon knows Stacy and knows what we do for a living.
Yes.
And busted up laughing. And she said, "Yeah, mortician just told you not to kill her wife." Just to be
Yes.
clear.
That is great.
And that
That
is
is
how we
great.
cope as well. We have some goodbyes and we have some humor. And we are at 32 minutes. Now, we do have a guest coming. I do have a splash of material coming out about her. So
Uh-huh.
we'll get that out this week. And then we have another guest the following week. So we are going to just roll right into the holiday week.
That sounds wonderful. All right, everybody. Wow, we had a long talk.
We did. We hope you all have a wonderful weekend. That if you're where the cold is, where Deb and the rest of you are, that you stay warm. That
It's
if you're
supposed to
out
be
here on the West Coast, you get out for some walks because we're going to be in the 80s this week, which is weird. It's just not okay. And it's going to be windy. So we're heading into fire season again. So everybody hold on, hang tight, and we'll see you next week. Bye,
bye-bye,
everybody.
everyone.